Hey everyone, welcome to this radio video. And this is a little personal observation video and talk about the solar activity and how we're going with solar cycle 24. So, you know what? We, of course, are in the downward spiral of solar cycle 24, and it shows because solar activity has been consistently going downwards in terms of the number of sunspots and the solar flux numbers. If we look at the solar flux index today, 82, April the 1st, that's pretty low if we look at it. And that ain't gonna get better. But one thing that you need to understand is, of course, a lower solar flux means that signals on higher frequencies will have a little more difficulty getting through because the solar flux, which basically is a number that indicates the overall output of the sun. If we take it, this doesn't go to zero, by the way. Solar flux, the lowest number of a solar flux is 60. It's kind of where they bottom out the number of the solar flux. So the lower solar flux is around 60. The highest solar flux is around 400. And this solar cycle, cycle 24, was not very big. I remember the previous cycle where solar flux actually very often reached 300 to 350. This one barely made 200 in its highest peaks. And of course, we don't have to go very crazy with that because when solar flux, generally what I say is when the solar flux is above 100, in general, conditions are not too bad. And of course, combined with the A and K indices for the geomagnetic field, gives an idea of general conditions. Now, one of the things that I see with a solar flux of 82, and I didn't notice this morning, is that, for example, KBS World Radio, that is on 15575 in English, around, I believe it's 13 or 1400 hours UT. I think it's 1300 hours. Barely makes it here in North America, and that is partly due to this solar flux that is so low. Um, you know, Giving that higher frequency a hard time to make it up to North America. There's a few things like that. I haven't tried yet. Tonight, I will try it out. But Radio Thailand moved to its summer frequency, and I would guess that the summer frequency they probably use, and I don't know, we're going to check it out right now. If I open a tab here to check it out, first let's check if the EIBI space updated their schedules. EIBI space.de, still on March 24th. Primetime shortwave, if we look at the schedules, 100 hours for Thailand. Yeah, they've moved to their 15590 frequency. This one, unless solar flux is much higher to support the higher frequencies, doesn't really propagate very well in times of low solar activity. Of course, it doesn't mean not to listen to shortwave, and I always say, because that's what I see all the time. I see people posting all the time, oh, solar flux is this and K index is that. I guess I'm gonna go watch a movie today. I'm not gonna turn on the radio. Well, that is probably the biggest error that anybody makes. Don't rely only on numbers. Sorry, rely on your own listening. Turn on the radio and check out what's there. There's always something, depending on the conditions. But there was a report that came out last month in March where they were talking about where we are at solar activity and solar cycle 24, and we're really in the downward spiral. So in the next few years, it's going to be slow, and solar flux is going to be down. But you know what? The sun is unpredictable. So even in times of low solar activity, there's times where big sunspots will appear. There's times when there could be solar flares. There could be anything could happen. It doesn't mean that the sun is flatlining totally. It's just that it's a little more quiet. So that's going to be interesting. Of course, one of the things that goes with lower solar flux is that very often we have less geomagnetic storms because of solar flares. We still can have some because of what we call the coronal holes, which is basically places in the sun's atmosphere where the solar wind escapes a little more. And sometimes that might kind of, max out or buffer our geomagnetic field here on Earth, and that will cause some disturbances. And in March we did see that, and particularly because March and September, when we are at the equinox, for a reason that is not totally understood, seems that even a slight gust in solar wind can make a geomagnetic storm. It's that two periods of the year where it's much easier for the geomagnetic field to actually open up. As for predictions, of course, this shows that we'll have a summer where solar flux and solar activity will probably generally be pretty quiet. So it is possible that higher frequencies, above 20 megahertz, might not propagate very well because of the lower solar flux. But still have a listen. I think it's important to listen, and I think it's important to really make sure that we do continue listening to the radio and check it out. Solar Flux is this is one of the websites I use, solarham.net. Pretty good. Another website that I quickly check for very fast, quick numbers is the dx.qsl.net. You click on the propagation. Here you have the very the numbers, the major numbers that you need, which is solar flux index and the K index. A index is an average, so I don't look at A index that much. What I'll look is the solar flux, and of course K index, because that one is every 3 hours and lets you know how the geomagnetic field and how everything is working around Earth's geomagnetic disturbances. A K of 0 is just perfect. It means it's a very quiet condition. But a solar flux of 82 is low. We're showing that our sun is really, really slowly getting getting it to the lowest part of solar cycle 24 coming up in the next few years. So that's going to affect shortwave listening for sure, especially at night. When the solar flux is low, as soon as the sun sets, we see the effect of the lack of solar radiation on the ionosphere show up real fast, and stations that typically use high summer frequencies for their summer time are more affected than those that are at lower frequencies. 49-meter band will probably still be good at night, but people, stations that change to the 31 or 25-meter band might have a hard time making it, for example, from Europe to North America and stuff like that. But still, we'll have a listen, and we have to keep in mind that shortwave is shortwave, and that we have to adapt our listening. And of course, send out reception reports, send out comments, and let stations know that you hear them or not, so that they might change the frequencies. One of the things that I hate about some of the stations, like for example KBS World Radio in South Korea, they decide that they just don't change their frequencies, and that is a big error. 15575 doesn't make it in winter, and with this solar activity that's lower, it won't even make it much in the summer if it goes on like this. They need to adapt their frequencies, and unfortunately they don't, and that is one of the reasons why sometimes stations leave shortwave. They stop getting reception reports, so they say, well, nobody's listening, when in fact the problem is they are choosing bad frequencies that just doesn't make it. A great example that Asia and can make it to North America and Europe. Look at all the Chinese fire drakes and the the CNR1 jammers that are there. Man, they all make it to North America with very often very good signals. So it gives you an idea that, yeah, you can make it too. Just choose the correct frequency. Same for, look at Radio Australia. Radio Australia's 9580 kilohertz frequency is amazing to North America. It's there a year round, and it's one of the great frequencies where you can listen. And I did listen to Radio Australia this morning, and you know what? We're at 15:20 UT, and I'm still hearing Radio Australia right now, which is pretty exceptional. We're almost midday here. So, stations need to do their part to make it not just solar activity. So that was my little personal observation on the state and the status of the solar cycle 24 and shortwave listening. So if you have any comments and suggestions, maybe you have your own little comments on this, why not share it? And I hope you enjoy the videos. Please subscribe and give us thumbs up. It's always nice to have everybody's feedback.